The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Q Points. Welcome to I Come Alive, Stories of Black Gay Atlanta Nightlife. I am your host, DJ Sir Daniel. This series strives to tell the stories of Atlanta's gay nightlife from the perspective of the people who lived it. Thank you for supporting episode 1. The response was overwhelming. Listener, you're in for a real treat because this episode is a reunion show of sorts. Drama Dupree is a social media pioneer that defined what it meant to go viral in the early 2000s. Prepare to be enthralled by his tales of leaving Alabama to become the toast of Atlanta. Enjoy the show. Many of you may know about 15 years ago. Yeah, it's been 15. We started a online radio show. And back then they might have been calling it, were they calling it podcast? They were calling it pod something.
It was pod something, but it was a podcast that we used online radio.
Yes. So I came from a radio background, so I wanted to be considered a radio person. I wanted to be, professional and whatnot.
Exactly.
So I linked up with a very good friend of mine who was popular in his own right, always had the gift of gab. And I'm going to let him introduce himself because you may or may not remember this whole introduction because it was a thing. It was definitely a thing. And it put him on the map for sure because he's had quite a few viral moments with his own personal blogs and video blogs over the years. But please, guest, if you would, introduce yourselves to our listeners.
I knew you was going to make me do that.
Of course I am.
You did not pick it up. And I haven't. Okay, hold on. Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen. You know who I am, and honey, you know who I be. I'm none other than the fabulous drama Dupree.
The one and only friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really well. I cannot complain. I'm doing so well that sometimes it shocks me how well I'm doing in certain aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And then in other aspects, it's like, child, what are you doing?
Do you think part of you doing so well is the fact that you actually left Atlanta years ago?
Yes, but the but is I never planned on leaving Atlanta because I always tell people, and I learned this later on in life, I tell people specifically that once I left Atlanta and look back on my time in Atlanta, the one thing I realized is that I never felt successful in Atlanta because I was constantly comparing myself to the people that were around me and the resources that those people had access to, I did not have access to. And be it whatever those resources were, I didn't have access to that. So I never felt successful in Atlanta. And I also say that that Atlanta was like the relationship with the man that I was in, but the man was not in love with me, but I was in love with the man. And so I didn't realize I was in an abusive relationship until I actually got out of the relationship.
Where are you from originally and what brought you to Atlanta?
I am originally from a very small town in Central East Alabama called Opelika, Opelika. Born and raised, graduated high school, and then a year after I graduated high school, I left. I actually was supposed to go to college at Talladega in Alabama, but when we went to go visit, I was like, "Oh no, girl, you ain't gonna survive
in Talladega.
You're not gonna survive in Talladega because the one thing about me is that I've never been in the closet to come out of the closet.
Okay.
And I've always been who I am. Mm-hmm. And even though that took on many different forms, I did not see you surviving this. So, and because I also had an injury at the time, it was like, well, we'll delay you coming for a year. I was like, oh, okay. And how I ended up in Atlanta was my best friend at the time, Craig Shaw, who's the owner of um, Black Universe Pageantry System. Um, he had went to college at Alabama A&M in Huntsville, and he didn't really like it. So he came home one weekend, and we had went to Atlanta. And by this time, we were good friends with Jasmine Bonet at the height of at her becoming Jasmine Bonet. She was Jasmine Bonet, but she wasn't like Jasmine Bonet, the female impersonator, and the gorgeous, talented, body beautiful Jasmine Bonet that she ended up becoming. She was like at the verge of that. The people in Atlanta knew she was.
Okay.
And so she heard me and Craig talking about, do we want to move up here? We was like, well, yeah, we had to get a job and all that kind of stuff. So she said, no, y'all can just come there with me. And we were like, girl, we don't know how. We were like, oh, thank you so much. On the ride home, I was like, girl, we don't know like that. Girl, we've been on this phone for like 2-3 months. Like, and it was on the weekend. And so she was like, no, seriously, y'all can move with me. So when Craig brought me home, this is before we had cell phones, I think. No, we had cell phones, but we weren't using it. So we had like landlines. So we had called and was like, hey, girl, are you serious about us? And she was like, child, yeah, just let me know if y'all want to come. And all that kind of, we was like, oh, okay. So Craig said, well, do you want to move? And I was like, I ain't doing that. He was like, okay, I'm going to go home and pack some clothes. I'll be back in 2-3 hours to get you. And then we're moving to Atlanta. And then he left. I packed some clothes and a suitcase and an old flowery suitcase that my grandmother had. And I threw some clothes in a laundry basket. And my mother had just like came in the house. She said, what are you doing? I said, I'm moving to Atlanta. She said, what do you mean? I said, I'm moving to Atlanta. She said, okay, when did you leave? I said, whenever Craig come back and pick me up. And she said, okay, I need the phone number to where you're going to be at and the address and the person and the contact person for Atlanta. And I said, okay. And I gave it to her. And she was like, all right, I'll see you later. And I said, all right, though. And that's how I ended up in Atlanta. That's how I ended up moving to Atlanta. Yeah. Now, finding out about Atlanta was like me walking into the land of Oz, because that was very different.
Okay.
Because I had started going clubbing when I was 14 years old, to this hole in the wall club in Columbus, Georgia, and so you've known me like a majority of my life.
Right.
I've always looked very young for my age.
So baby face, yes.
Yeah, in the face. So not in the body.
I said baby face. I didn't say nothing about the body.
So imagine me being 14.
Wow.
Trying to get into somebody's door with a fake ID that said
you look like an embryo.
Like, child, get out of here. And I was like, oh, okay. So then one of the drag girls saw me. She said, you want to get in? And I was like, yes. She said, come to the bag. She said, walk around the bag and I'm going to let you in through the bag, through the kitchen. And I said, oh, okay. She said, but you're going to have to stay back here. You're going to have to stay in the back of the club because security can't see that you've been there. And I said, oh, okay. So I ended up getting into the club, and I can't remember like what song was playing, but I know like if I jumped up high enough, I could touch the ceiling. And there was like screw on light, hole in the wall. It was screw on light bulbs in the ceiling. You could like literally jump up there. And if you jumped up there enough times, you could unscrew the light bulbs. It was the kitchen to the right. The DJ was to the left. And the person who had took me then, rest in peace, was named Tim Foster, my first gay mother. And from there, I introduced Craig to Columbus, Georgia. And then we started going to Columbus, Georgia a whole lot. And then eventually, like the guys, no, go ahead. What's your question?
No, I was going to say, so that ride from so you were going from Opelika to Columbus. And for people that are outside, so people outside of the South, it's only 30 minutes, like in back roads or whatever, between Opelika and that part of Georgia, because Columbus, Georgia is south? No.
Columbus, Georgia is south of Atlanta, and it's like I think 160 miles from Atlanta, I think, if even that far.
Okay. So
straight down I-85.
Straight down I-85. So back and forth on the weekends, 30 minutes to Columbus, Georgia. So
Columbus, Georgia.
At 14 years old.
From 14 to 18.
From 14 to 18. So when did you get the gumption, or when did somebody say, okay, we've outgrown this, let's hop in the car and head up 85 north to the city of Atlanta?
So it's so funny because so this is another connection. So there was a group of guys in Columbus, Georgia that we all hung out with. And one of the most popular guys from that group is now a stylist in New York City by the name of Morel Hollis. And I can't remember if Morel used to do makeup and hair for Diddy, and then he did it for Wendy. I
Wendy
think his last time was
Williams.
Wendy Williams. Now he does Mary J.
Yes.
Blige. So
Okay.
remember, I'm always one person away from somebody.
Yes, indeed.
Or just with
Charmed.
that person.
The
So I
charmed
don't
one.
remember if Morel was on that trip with us or not, but I remember the overall arching father-mother figure of that trip was a guy named Marcus Hunt. And we all kind of looked up to Marcus because in our eyes, he was like the most oldest and mature one in the group. And Marcus had made the decision, okay, we're going to Atlanta this weekend. We're not partying with the kids in Columbus. So y'all need to get here early. We all need to pack an overnight bag. And he still knew we were in high school. He said, I don't know what lie y'all got to tell y'all folks, but we're going to Atlanta, Georgia. He was like, oh my God. So of course we were like, this is the lie I used to tell, and I tell this story all the time. I would tell my mother I'm going to stay at my grandmother's house, and I would tell my grandmother I'm staying with my big mother, and I would tell my big mama I'm just gonna stay home for the weekend, big mama, and I would be everywhere but where I was supposed to be. So we ended up going to Columbus. I think I was actually 17, because we were still in the house because I was 17, and we followed them through I had never been to Atlanta, so coming into Atlanta, it was like in a movie scene. It was like cars passing by, bright lights. You could see the city off in the distance.
It was nighttime when you. It was nighttime when y'all were arriving. Okay, so you saw the skyline,
and it was lit up. It was absolutely bright. I still remember it. We were in my best friend's blue Mustang. I think he had like a '86 blue Mustang, and we were going to Tracks at 306 Lucky Street. And this is where Tracks used to have like straight nights on Friday and gay nights on Saturday. This is when the projects were still in the where now the Coke building is.
The Techwood. I think those are Techwood homes.
Project. Yep. What's over there now? The aquarium.
The aquarium. All kinds of rich stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's what the
Georgia
that's
Tech,
what the Techwood
basically
used to be at. And so we're riding up to the project. And we're like, bitch, what the fuck? A gay club is this doesn't in me in the car. I'm like, sorry, this don't feel safe. But what's so funny is that they knew, like the projects knew, like Saturday was gay night at the club, and no one had any issues with us being at all.
Just for context, what year was this? What year was this?
This was 89-90.
Okay.
This is 89-90. I can't remember what hip hop person was playing because I wasn't in the hip hop at that time. But I knew it was something going on with hip hop. And so it was a Saturday night. We pull up, and the first time that we could not get in, of course, because we looked very young, and you had to go this is when you entered. I forgot the name of the street, but you had to go like 2 flights of stairs.
Yes.
You remember that? You had to go 2 flights of stairs.
That was on the other side.
That was on the other side, right? I know the back side.
What is the name of that street?
I forget what the front
that
side was.
That was Marietta Street.
Was it Marietta Street?
So Lucky Street was on the back. Yes, Marietta, because it would turn into West Marietta. So Marietta was on the front. That was the front entrance. Yes. So on the back side on Lucky Street, you had to come up. Yes, and I remember your friend Big Cheryl. Used to work the door. And I remember he used to, for whatever reason, he used to like give me a hard time when I would go.
Cheryl gave everybody a hard time.
Oh my goodness! So, but please
Cheryl
continue.
Was a hard time himself. And so we tried to get in with the ideas that we had, but they were like, "Baby, this hurts you." And I was like, "Okay, child, whatever." But what we loved about it was that you could still party outside, because even though there would be like 200 or 300 people in the club, there was just as many people outside the club.
The let out was everything.
And this is before the let out even let out.
Yes.
Let out the club. And so, and you can still hear the music outside. So we just like walked around, and we were so amazed at the diversity of Black gay men that we saw, because this is when we saw Black guys with the gold chains, with the white tees, the baggy pants, and the Timbs. And we were like, they gay? And then we saw the Femme Queen girls. We were like, because at first we were like, what are all these women here? Like, what is up with all these women? Not realizing that those were the girls, quote unquote.
The dolls.
What you would call trans women now, but back then we just called them the girls. And we were like, oh, okay, because the girls in Atlanta look very different than the girls in Columbus, Georgia. I'll say that, and I'm gonna leave that there. So, and then it was the aspect of it all, and it was a time. I mean, you had all the kids from Morehouse. No,
Yes.
no, sorry,
All
all the kids
the
from
the
Morehouse, all the
AUC
other,
kids,
all of them were there. And
the
when
Job
we
Corps
were,
kids. Don't forget the Job Corps
oh
kids.
God, listen, the job. Yeah, okay, the job. It was a good time to be black and gay then. Um, and so I think we left. I remember we left and we were in a day on the ride back to Alabama the next morning. And we ended up coming back again with Marcus and all of them again. And this time we ended up getting into the club because we ended up going we didn't realize you could go around to the back.
Mm-hmm.
So we went around to the back and this guy was like, y'all can't get in. We was like, no. He was like, well, help me. Cause he was drunk off his ass. He said, help me in and I'll get you in. And he was like, okay. So he threw his arms around me and Craig, and we walked him in. And whoever was at the back door knew him. He was like, no, man, they with me. I'm fucked up. And he was like, all right, go on in, man. And when we get in, we were like, what in the hell is this? It was amazing. They had at the time they only had two levels. They had remember they had a basketball goal and a picnic area outside to the left.
Mm-hmm.
They had the upstairs that was like you could walk all the way around the upstairs. You can lean over
The
the
railing.
balcony. Yeah, see everything that was going on downstairs. You had the DJ that was downstairs in the back to the left. You had the stage. It was amazing. I had never seen anything like it. It was like what you think nightclubs would have been in LA, and I found out later that they weren't. But it was, and you saw every type of gay person that ever was to see, and we all partied together. And the one thing I always loved about Atlanta back then is that there were no fights, there were no issues. I'm sure, like there were readings within the group, within whatever group
Yes.
you were in, but there were no like, oh, when I get to the club, I'm going to beat that bitch up. But there wasn't on that because there was not social media. And so people didn't have as many issues with people as they do now.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that we always had was that we all wanted to get together and just party and dance. And it was so amazing. So eventually that did lead to like me and Craig, like, listen, my 12th grade year in high school, I I am so surprised I graduated because when I say I skipped school a majority of the Friday and would
Okay.
not be back in Opelika until like Monday when it was time for me to go back to school
Oh
because I was
wow.
in Atlanta. And eventually we did end up moving to Atlanta with Jazz.
Now, do you recall, speaking of the dance floor and seeing the dance floor was packed, the
Packed.
dance floor were always packed. Do you recall the song that took your breath away?
Yes, it was two songs. It was The Strings of Life, which is a house song that came out
Mm-hmm.
in like 1987. And you can Google it on YouTube. It's called Strings of Life because they're no longer playing it on Apple Music. And then it was Barbara Tucker's I Get Lifted. And those were the two songs because they was house songs. And I always wanted a hard beat because in my mind, if you had that good beat, you could do Runway Walk.
Uh-huh.
And so once I moved to Atlanta and was like, oh no, bitch, I'm like the girls is walking because remember there was a part of the club downstairs where when the beat dropped, the runway kids was just take over that whole area and would just
Absolutely.
walk from one end of the club to the next. So those were the two songs that I remember like this a hard house beat song, which I still listen to this day.
The Barbara Tucker, the duck beats, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, 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 yes. Oh man. Yeah, you just brought back some memories. The memories have truly flooded my mind. And as we discuss the main issue here about those disappearing scenes, like you talked about tracks. Tracks was when they say the legendary tracks of Atlanta, it was truly legendary. Like
It
I
was.
remember that being one of the first places I would see your mainstream straight acts come, like
Yes.
the women. Like I remember seeing
Yeah.
Trina fall through there. The
Mm-hmm.
Brat fell through tracks to enjoy shows and
Promote.
whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
to promote their music and whatnot, and just to get in touch with their fans, because at that time they realized how lucrative a gay fan base was.
Yes.
But if you had to guess, drama, like why have a lot of those places like your Marquette is still there.
The Marquette is still there. The Marquette is holding on, and
Still
the
yet
Marquette is
holding on.
still holding on. It's like I don't know what till y'all got on the landowner, but baby,
They're still able
they
to,
have,
and probably one of the only few black owned
yeah,
spots still. But if you
yeah,
had to guess, why have a lot of Atlanta's black and queer spaces all but disappear?
because of money. But this is one thing you also have to realize is that even though we had black spaces, we did not own a lot of those spaces because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those spaces were rented out. Like Loretta's, I do believe was not actually owned by the people who own Loretta's nightclub, or the time it was Loretta's, and then they ended up becoming 702. Did it change the
708.
name again after
It was
708? But did
708,
it change
yeah.
the name again? Okay. So I don't think they actually owned that property.
Mm-hmm.
I think that property was just rented out into Infinity, and then apparently Infinity had a cutoff time. And that was sold to Georgia, whoever,
Tech, Georgia Tech.
Tech, sold to Georgia
Yeah,
Tech.
because Georgia Tech
Um,
owns everything over there
Everything.
except
There
the
was another club
bathhouse for
called
whatever
that
reason.
part. That told somebody got tea on somebody. Um, like even when I first was coming out in the like early '90s and late '80s, it was the Palace downtown that got done away with. The Pearl Garden was somewhere off of Peachtree in the downtown area that got bought and sold out. So it was a case of we didn't own, but we had nights at clubs that we did not own. So
Mhm.
when those people were presented with an astronomical amount of money, the people that owned the property sold. So we didn't have anywhere to go. For a minute, the gays in Atlanta had nowhere to go. So then remember, we had to branch out further outside of downtown Atlanta.
Mhm.
And no one really knew how that was going to work because it was like, why am I driving 30 miles from downtown to go to some other club in a neighborhood? Because remember
Memorial
when Trax,
Drive
yes, when Trax left downtown, Trax had to go to Decatur,
to Columbia Drive. Yep,
to
and that
Columbia
old
Drive. Yep,
skating rink. I'll never
yep.
forget that. That
They
place
had
was
to go there.
huge.
Huge, huge. But they did have a lot of like stars come through. Lil Kim came through several times. Did I think Faith Evans came through a couple of times? Nicki Minaj came through when she first started coming out. Um, and so they did still have the popular like the musicians and things come out, but we had to leave downtown,
Mm.
and that was the thing is that we had to literally leave downtown.
What do you
Um,
think the? How do you think the? What do you think the '96 Olympics played in that?
I think they had a lot to do with it. I think they had a lot to do with it as far as property was concerned because they wanted the space and they wanted the area. Because before then, remember, Atlanta was the one thing about Atlanta that I always hated is that Atlanta was always going through a construction transition. So whoever the new mayor was, it was like, oh my God, we got a new one. So whatever their agenda was, we knew there was going to be something that was going to be taken away. And whatever it was, it would always affect the gay community first. Because I forgot who got elected as mayor, but as soon as they got elected, Backstreets went away.
It was probably, was that Bill Campbell? It might have. I'm trying. It was either between Bill Campbell or Shirley Franklin.
I want to say it was Shirley Franklin.
Okay.
Um, I think it was Shirley Franklin because we thought that was really weird. Considering it was Shirley Franklin. Because also because a lot of like other smaller quote unquote white gay clubs end up also disappearing during that time frame. And so it was a thing whereas the property that we had in downtown Atlanta, other people wanted it who had the means, and they basically got what they wanted. And then we end up being thrown to the wayside. So that's when the chaparral comes into play.
Phase
What was the name of the
one.
phase one? What's the name of the club I used to work at? Phase one came into got bigger play. Um, but now a lot of clubs, I don't even think Atlanta has clubs like that anymore. Because the Chaparral ended up closing down because I think they were supposed to do something to that area off the
Mm-hmm.
highway, and
Yep.
they never did.
That never reopened. There was the Jungle
The jungle
off of
got
Cheshire
torn
Bridge
down
Road.
for apartment complexes and parking.
Nothing but apartment complexes over there.
Nothing but apartment complexes. Right. The Heretic is still there, but we didn't get to the Heretic. We didn't start visiting the Heretic until the legendary Stars of the Century moved their show to the Heretic, which is a big difference from it being at Tracks and the Jungle to the Heretic.
Mm-hmm. From your perspective, as you've gotten older, like what has become important to you when it comes to sharing spaces with your peers?
I don't share spaces with my peers.
Please say more about that. Unpack that.
So the older I got, because remember I said I started clubbing when I was 14, and that was like, and it was damn near every weekend. And even when I didn't live in Atlanta, I was still going. Even when I had to move back to Opelika, I was still going to Columbus or still going to Atlanta on the weekends. And so when I moved back to Atlanta in 2005, 2006, I started working for the Shopper Rail in Phase One under Mario. I forgot Mario's last name. I'm horrible with names. Under Mario on my ATL production.
My ATL production. I remember Mario.
Under my ATL production. So I started working with him, and he was a great person to actually work for and work with. And so with that, I was always the behind the scenes person. Like I was like, it was like how like what things are we gonna come up with for this weekend? Who are we gonna book and stuff like that? And then the flyers, I was the one that was creating flyers and all that kind of stuff. And then we came out like under Mario, it was we came out with like merch with like t-shirts, rags, sweatshirts, and things of that nature. And then for some odd reason, he had the bright idea to put me on the door. And I had never been on the door. So in my mind, it was, oh, okay, he said, these are the rules, follow the rules. So, oh, okay. So with working the door, it was a lot of BS that I didn't know came with working the club, because it was a lot of, oh, I'm such and such and such. And it was, so I'm on the guest list. And it would be like, well, no, sweetie, there is no guest list. Oh, but yeah, because they know me. Well, that's good.
Sure.
There's no guest list. But I don't know what to say because I'm not paying. And mind you, to get into the club back then was on like 20, 15, 20 bucks. If even that.
If even that.
If it didn't get to like 35 until we had like a weekend, like a big weekend.
A celebrity or a holiday weekend of
something like that. So I was like,
yeah.
You can't pay $15 to get it. Like, if you're supposed to be Mr.
All that.
All that. So at the Shopper Rail, it was not the Shopper Rail. At Phase One, I used to love the security guys because all I had to say was security, and of course they were straight men. You with that what you will.
Charmed one.
So I would say security, and they don't care who it was. They were snatching them up and moving them out of the way. And then when I got to the Shopper Rail, I found it was a little bit different, because that's what somebody said. They were like, depending on like so you all know me as Drummer Dupree, but depending on when I came out, I was also going by Brianna, which is my name I was transitioning to, or some people just shortened it to Bree. So somebody came to tap me on one Saturday, they was like, Bree, you're gonna have to be a little bit nicer on this door. And I said, well, no, they said there's a list. You said there isn't a list, so I'm confused on what list they think they got access to. And so it was, ooh, child, just come to the back. So it was a lot of come to the back, and then eventually it was, can I just not work at the club? Can I like come before the club opens and do everything I needed to do and all that kind of stuff? So then we just ended up taking meetings outside of that. But even in that, like working with Tron from West T, when he had events in Atlanta and eventually events in Vegas, it was, oh, I no longer like this, because the fun, for some odd reason, the fun of clubbing to me had left. Because then it became all about the people showing up, not having a good time, not partying, drinking still, because the bar gonna make their money regardless.
Right.
It was not partying. It became about VIP tables and booze. It became about getting the VIP tables, the booze. It became about sections. It became about hookah. It became about designer stuff. People had stopped dancing, and there was just gathering. And my thing was like, well, you can't really gather at the club and have conversations at the club because the music is too loud. So the dance floor would be available, and no one was dancing. And I'm seeing this because I'm leaving the front door, and I'm going to see, like, oh, what's going on in the club? Because I know we just, like, 100 people just came through. So let me go see what the atmosphere is in the club. And so when you're in it, you're like, the DJ is turning it, and no one is dancing. And I don't mean like no one is dancing. I mean like out of 100 people, probably 10 people are dancing. But everybody else is just standing around with me. Child, you see this?
This outfit?
You see this Gucci I just got? But you ain't said you got it from the flea market. But come on, sis. Are you like, so it became a lot of that, to the point where as it was just like now, I will not do the door for anybody. I will not go to the club for anybody. And I always tell friends, especially those now that visit, and even when I visit Atlanta, you can meet me anywhere in a social setting where we can actually have communication and talk. But if you tell me to meet you at a club, I will not be there.
What does that look like for us? You know, we're the older gays now. We are,
we go to functions.
Speak more on that. What does that look like for us?
So we go to functions, but from what I see, we go to functions when the sun is out. We're normally in the house no later than we're not out of the house past 10.
Mm-hmm.
We go to functions. Some of us may or may not go to brunch, depending on how bad we want to turn up. I personally do not like a turn up brunch. I don't need to dance on the table. I actually prefer, and you know this, I prefer we go somewhere we can actually talk and eat and have a good time. I don't need the tabletop dancing. And so we'll go to functions, we'll go to brunch, and I text you the other day saying I want to like even though I lived in Atlanta forever, I haven't been to a house in the park because to me that's not clubbing, and people actually go to house in the park to dance.
That's right.
A good time. So that's the aspect of clubbing that I miss. So we'll do functions, and I will even do a function if I'm inspired to do a function. But we go to functions within a certain time frame. And we'll go to house. The majority will go to a good house party, depending on when the house party is, and as the older we get, depending on where it is in proximity to my house.
And please believe that.
And yes, because I went to a house party out here with that my sister Savannah Westbrook threw. And when I walked in, she said, "First of all, you're early." And I said, "I'm giving you an hour." And she said, "For real, sis, that's all you're gonna give me as an hour?" I said, "You're getting 1 hour." And I hit my stopwatch. And she said, "Bitch, are you serious?" I said, "Savannah, I don't do this. I'm only doing this because you're my sister. And I love you." I actually ended up staying 3 hours because I had a really good time. But at the 3rd hour mark, I politely escorted myself out of the way and I left. And then the next day she texted me. She said, "You didn't even tell me about it." I said, "There was no reason for me to tell you about it. I stayed past my time anyway, and I didn't need to interrupt the party that was going on." So I'm the person that will leave an event and not make an announcement that I'm leaving.
What do they call that? Is that called Irish?
No. It's just called leaving.
No, that it's that, but it also has a name, like an Irish goodbye or something like that, where you just you don't say nothing. You don't say nothing. You just do that Homer Simpson meme where you just disappear into the bushes and you're out. And that's and I think, and you're absolutely right. I don't know if that's because of how differently. Well, one, yes, we're older. We require some of us require more rest. Standing up for long periods of time just isn't tea anymore, isn't the thing to do.
And there's a patient thing there. There is a I don't want to be bothered thing there. But that's not to say that people our age still don't go to the clubs, because remember, a lot of guys my age, because for some reason people think I'm older than you, and I don't know why. A lot of guys who are my age, or people that assume that they're my age, they still go out. They still go out. They still get in on the weekends in the club. I'm just not one of those people.
Okay. And that's, and I get it. And I'm wondering if, do you think that the generations that have come after us, they don't, because they don't have to move in silence like we did. Like we had to come up with elaborate stories of where we were going. We had to take a spend a night bag and say, "Oh, I'm spending the night at such and such house," so we could go change there before we head out. And they don't have to move in silence like we did, right? No. So do you think that's why there isn't much of an emphasis on preserving Black-owned spaces?
No. And the reason I say no is because the Black community as a whole has never been more entrepreneurial now than we've ever been. It's just that the concept for that space has changed. So we're not, and access to those spaces have changed. So it's not that we're not opening up spaces. The spaces are just different. So they're like, people in Atlanta are opening up restaurants. They are which are seen as nightclub-esque, but they're not catering specific to a gay audience. It's just they're catering
Facts.
to an audience that is gay friendly.
Okay.
I'll
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of gay friendly spaces that I've seen specifically in Atlanta, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not a gay space specifically. So there's a lot of mingling with the straight.
Mm-hmm. Now, do
And
you think
but
that about that? That point right there. There's a lot of commingling. There's a lot of,
mm-hmm,
back then it was the occasional fag hag that would come along with her good
occasional.
Judy, the occasional fag hag. Then it started turning into the bridal parties coming to enjoy the drag shows and
Yep.
showing their behinds when they came into the drag club and
Mm-hmm.
now into the gay clubs, and now it's just the spots now where, because we live in a post Beyonce world, a post Renaissance world where everybody feels welcomed and almost entitled to this kind of space. Do you think that has taken away any of like the specialness
Yes.
that we felt
Yes.
coming up?
Yes. The one thing that I complain about, and people are not going to agree with this, the
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I complain about is that I hate we opened up our community.
Mm.
And I because I was driving down Atlanta, I was visiting Atlanta one time, and I saw a billboard off of Piedmont, and it was a white queen on the billboard,
Uh-huh.
but the vernacular was something that we used to say as the Black gays. It was one of
Mm.
our slang.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the fuck? And
Mm-hmm.
I said, oh, they've got too comfortable with us because we opened the door. Black people have always opened the door and welcomed everybody in. So the Black gays have also did that as well. But I really do, because I loved the fact that remember back in the day, Black and Gay had a schedule,
Yes.
and it was very linked to the nightclub scene.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I couldn't be like I was out at work, but I wasn't Brianna at work. I wasn't Drama Dupree at work, but I was still gay at work.
Mm-hmm.
So like remember Monday nights was Loretta's, Tuesday night was getting where
Thugged
you
Out
get in.
Tuesdays,
Yep. Wednesday night was wherever Wednesday night was gonna be. Then
church
the palace was
service.
church
Mm-hmm.
was like the palace was up in there somewhere in the after
The
like
palace.
afternoon work. Friday was whatever, Saturday was whatever. Saturday was Piedmont Park. Back then you could drive in through it. You could drive through Piedmont Park.
Ooh.
We had a
Ooh.
section of Piedmont Park on Fridays and Sundays. Um, and it was the Black gay community, and then we opened it up,
Mm.
to our Black sisters, our Black straight sisters, or
Mm-hmm.
cisgender sisters, and
Okay.
then from there we opened it up to the white gay community, and then all of a sudden it became there became this backlash of Black gay men, especially effeminate Black gay men. That Black gay men, the effeminate Black gay men, were trying to act like Black women, and I never saw that because the majority of my life growing up, my friends were Black women,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't act anything like me. They didn't speak my language because at one point they had to tell me, "We can't translate what you're saying,
What is
so
all
stop
that?
talking." So yeah, so stop talking like that. Talk to us like regular. I was like,
uh,
"So okay." So I remember I had to quote unquote code switch from the gay language I was using with my gay friends when I would come back home from the club and all that kind of stuff. And so I hate, and I don't want to say hate, I dislike that we open it up so much because now I'm seeing it in ballroom, whereas the ballroom community opened it up. And I saw a ballroom video the other day, and there was not one person of color on that stage or in that audience.
Baby, that video
And I
probably
said,
was filmed in Russia
it,
because
it was filmed
ballroom is all in
overseas.
Russia. Yes.
It was most definitely filmed overseas. And I said normally they would invite at least like one of the I don't know what the people are called that do the one of the chant people. I don't know
Commentators,
what
the
one of the
commentators.
commentators. The commentator was even not a person of color, and that's fine. But I
Hmm.
was like, oh wow, but they gentrified ballroom so quick once Legendary came out on HBO. It was like, oh, that was real quick. That was like quick, fast, and early. That they gentrified that quicker than they did the Black gay. So I do not like it, but I get it. Like I get all the mixing and the mingling, but at the same time, there is still not a like safe space for us. to where it's just us
Yeah.
because someone else is always in there. And some of them do, and I know that, and I know this because I've even heard females say this specifically that um they want a space for them without black gay men there. And I get it. And it's like, okay, I completely get that. Don't invite us.
Black cis
Women.
women
Yeah.
with like a space all to themselves
Without us. Without
without
men, period.
men. Period. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Without men, period. But you do know you had that one girl to be like, well, child, that's Brian, honey. He gay. And that'll be the excuse to get me through the door. And they'll be like, girl, you know what's supposed to be done. Well, child, that's Brian.
Or
That's
not
Miss
only
Brian.
that, it could be that one girl. They'd be like, "Well, girl, my man wanted to come out with me, and that's my man, and and so there's always that one girl in the group
There's
that'll
always
do
that
that.
one. Yeah.
That'll do that
So
as well. So yeah,
it's always a thing of we didn't have to. I get why we did because of progression of time and things of that nature, but we didn't have to. No one was suffering when we did not.
right.
Like no one was suffering.
It was more of I would hear the straight women saying, "Oh, girl, I'm going to a gay club."
It was
It was a scientific experience. Like you would have thought they were coming there dressed up like Jane Goodall with a safari hat on and binoculars, like coming to look at the gays in their natural habitat. They were on safari, and yeah, it was a fishbowl experience for quite a few people to come there and to be in awe at all of the things that were going on, because to your point, when we first came along and we started hanging out, the dance floors were still packed. The songs, I'll never forget the summer I graduated from high school, 93. That was the summer of Robin S. You Gotta Show Me Love.
Yes, You Gotta Show Me Love. Yep.
I heard that song ad nauseum that whole summer. And every single night I went to Loretta's on welfare night on Thursday nights.
Yes, God. I forgot about that.
Yes. Thursday nights were welfare night. So the discussion at large is about these disappearing spaces, and maybe they've disappeared out of necessity or lack of necessity to have these spaces because we're not in hiding anymore. But then what have we given up? What have we given up to be incorporated? They're probably going to be mad at me for saying this, but I feel it's like when people always talk about back in the segregation days, Jim Crow days, Black people's communities were so insulated that we were also within our insulation were progressive. We had so much money.
We were prospering. Yes.
We were prosperous. The money was circulating 100 times more than it is now. Blah blah blah. But when desegregation came, we had to give up some of that. So it's almost like, have we had to give up something to gain our foot on the stage, on the world stage, to be put there? So I get that's what I'm exploring here. That's what I'm trying to figure out and talk to people.
That's exactly what it is. It just happens to be with the gay nightlife scene that we've seen because the gentrification of cities didn't just happen like in Atlanta. Like DC's Black Gay scene changed. Houston's Black Gay scene changed.
Drama Dupree, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Well, thank you for the invite.
To go down memory lane. Special. You are special to me, and to a lot of people that I'm sure are listening and remember. You, of course, remember, what was it? Food Stamp Wars. I know they.
Oh.
Those things. That's iconic. That's part of.
Listen.
That has become part of our culture. It was a cultural moment. It was a cultural moment.
When my child had went to the club, he did not know I posted that video. Baby, the way he had left the chaperone and came home and beat my door down. was ready to fight me.
Is this
Tiki? Because of
Tiki?
food stamp wars?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Tiki. Tiki was like, "What the baby?" And I was living with Tiki. We were living out on
off of Columbia
Glendale.
Drive.
No, we was on Glendale.
Glenwood Drive.
Glenwood.
Yes.
Glenwood.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
That's another thing. If you ever spent time in Atlanta, you're gonna live in everywhere within the city of Atlanta, whether it's in one of the outlying counties like DeKalb County, Cobb County. You are going to live everywhere in Atlanta, especially back then in the 90s and early 2000s. Well, again, I thank you very much for this conversation, and I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but I'm trying to get to an understanding of where we're going to be in a few years. Will there even be a need?
Will there be a need for what?
For those spaces? Will there be a need for those spaces? Like I was saying, these young people these days, they don't wait for anything. They turn up every and anywhere.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there won't be a need.
Yeah.
There won't be a need because like you just said, the younger generation shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Whether invited or not, I'm showing up. My friend DJing. Oh well, I'm here. And then when I come, I am bringing 200 people with me because of the power of social media.
Yes.
So we know y'all had a straight hip hop night, but now the gays have taken over, or whatever event it was. We tend to take over. But no, I don't think there'll be a need, and I don't think we were ever in Atlanta with the crowds that would turn out at the club. There was no hiding. Like you couldn't hide because the masses were there. You could run into a person from school, a high school, college, church,
a coworker,
and it couldn't be a thing of where you gonna run back and tell somebody because you was here too.
You were there too.
So you can't say nothing.
Listen, for those of you listening, for those of you who are old enough to have lived through the 90s, there was a time where I think it was almost a rite of passage to be young and gay and work at a call center.
It was.
And we all worked at a call center at one point, and that for sure was when if you went out, you were bound to see somebody that you worked with.
I saw so many coworkers. I was like, bitch, I had no idea. Because remember when I was telling you about the tracks and the guy with the white t-shirt and the boots and the chain and all that kind of stuff? The first call center I worked at in Atlanta, he showed up in a suit and tie. And I said, this the same? What? And he was the same, quote unquote, straight acting guy he was at the club that he was at the call center. And I said, oh, wow, I never knew. He was also one of the guys that when I first went to work as Brianna and to go through HR and all that kind of stuff, he said, I didn't know who you are. I thought you was a new girl that we had just hired. I was like, no, and I remember you when you used to go to tracks if you were sick on Lucky Street with your wife being on your chains and all your kind of we know each other. I see you, boo.
We see each other.
We see each other, yes. So no, I don't think now or going forward there will be there's not a need for those spaces. But with that being said, I still think there is a need just for us to come together as community without the outside world. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a club. But back then that's where we were. And that's what we had access to. So that's what we did.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Drama Dupree. Thank you for tuning in to this latest episode, and we will see you on the next go round. Thank you for listening to I Come Alive, Stories of Black Gay Atlanta Nightlife. Brought to you by Q Points Productions. Special thanks to the Counter Narrative Project 2024 Media Roundtable for their support as well. Make sure you become a Q Point subscriber so that you don't miss the next episode of I Come Alive.